So you suck at Hearts of Iron 4. You don't know how to play the German Reich, and that's fine. I'm here to teach you. Follow along. Today we'll be playing a historical campaign as the German Reich. We will be going to war in 1939 around the historical date, and if you follow along, I too can show you the ways of extremely overpowered Germany. We'll play on Iron Man mode with regular difficulty and historical AI focuses. So let's go. Observe and be educated. Now before I start anything else, 1. This video guide assumes you have a basic understanding of the UI and some game concepts like assigning generals, field marshals, and designing divisions. 2. I will not be explaining my research or my focuses. I'll simply leave a list down below that you can follow along, and you can get a grasp for what you prefer on your own as you get a little bit more experience. I found that this focus and research is what I usually do, and it gets me where I need to go. I can explain more while I'm doing it, but I'm not going to give you the full rundown of what focus is, so you don't have to constantly click through the video trying to find out what I'm doing. Again, there will be a list in the description. Okay, that said, Germany. So where to begin? We'll begin with the easy bit, construction. I like to build infrastructure in Westfalen and Hessen, the maximum number allowed, followed by the maximum number of civilian factories in Westfalen and Hessen, followed by infrastructure in Moselland and Rhineland, and more civilian factories in Rhineland and Moselland. Reason we're building in Westfalen and Hessen first is these areas have a dam modifier, meaning an increased construction speed, more factories available. Overall, it's just a good place to build your industry. The Rhineland does not have that modifier, but it will through our focus tree. By the time we start the actual construction in Rhineland, we should be either close to finishing the focus that gives us the dam, or we'll already have it. And the reason we're doing the same in Moselland is because it has a nice amount of build slots available. No dam, but many build slots. And it has a lot of steel and aluminum available, and increasing the amount of infrastructure in the area gives us more of those resources. Yes, very nice, very neat. Next up, production. We have 28 military factories. We're going to assign 15 to our Karabiners, so basic guns. We'll add a total of 2 to support equipment, 2 for towed artillery. We'll leave the improved light tanks. We could go down to 1. Usually I don't use light tanks that many, but we'll see later. We're going to get rid of the basic medium airframes. Now we're going to add a production line for towed anti-air. Towed anti-air is pretty based and great. So we'll add 2 of that. We'll add a 3rd factory to support equipment. We'll be using a lot of that. And that's about what we'll be using. We'll shift the numbers around later on, but for a start, this will do. We also have some naval stuff down here. We're going to reduce the number of ships to be built for each production line down to 1. And we're simply going to finish the ones we have in the queue. Simply because they've already had a lot of work done. Would be a waste to get rid of it. A lot of people say that you have to get rid of these, it's more efficient. Maybe, but I like my big boats. Then we take the Admiral Hipper, the Scharnhorst class battleships. We're going to assign 5 dockyards to each, and then hit shift and click decrease priority. This moves them all the way down in the priority queue. Finish up these destroyers as well. Now the military as well. We have an army. We have a total of 30 divisions, so shift click the red icon. This selects all unassigned divisions, assign them all to a general. We'll take 24 infantry out, so this is the basic infantry army. It's fine. We'll assign them to a field marshal as well. That leaves us with 3 tanks, 1 motorized, a cavalry, and a mountaineer. Take the cavalry and the mountaineer, assign each of them to a separate general, and assign them to the field marshal as well. Draw a fallback order simply just to organize everything, and then the tanks and motorized can be parked somewhere near Berlin. Doesn't really matter. What I do with these is usually take one of the Panzer divisions and switch it over to a motorized division. Now, this is not required. I usually do this so I can very effectively grind traits on my generals in the Spanish Civil War, but I'll talk about that when it comes down to it. This is not a required step. This is personal taste. And the next step of my nerdiness is to queue up as many cavalry divisions as possible on a high equipment priority. This just means that all freshly produced equipment goes into these divisions instead of trying to reinforce what's already in the field. It's a way of making sure that these cavalry get produced quickly. We can queue queue up 43. Once these are built, we're going to queue up 3 more, and then we'll have a total of 46 divisions deployed. That should fill out these armies completely. We will be forcibly deploying these as soon as they hit 9% training. Just click this button. Just keep clicking this as the game progresses, and we'll be forcibly deploying them, making sure we get many divisions ready on a minimal amount of equipment just to have them out in the field. Next up, research. Again, I'm not going to be highlighting my research. I'll leave a list of my research in order down below in the description, but I always open with industry. Industry for a country like Germany is vital. It is what will carry us to victory. Along with range improvements, air is king and air range is very important. Focuses, of course, we will start by remilitarizing the Rhineland. We're going to follow things relatively historical so we can start the war at the right time in the best possible position. Now, that also means we are going with a 4-year plan. Downside of the 4-year plan are the MEFO Bills. We have a special project available. We have a land warfare facility. We'll assign Edward there. He's our tank expert, and we will be researching military engineering vehicles. These are really good. As for trade, we're going to trade a little bit of rubber with Siam, since we're not going to war with Siam. Airplanes, we're going to take the transports and naval bombers. We'll delete those. All the other airplanes, we can simply move to a central airfield near Berlin, and we'll hit pilot exercises. So shift click this so they'll train until they reach the maximum level, and we'll do the training during the day, simply because these are all terrible pilots. Terrible pilots crash a lot, but they crash even more during the night. So if we only train during the day, the crashes will be limited. The airplane losses will also be limited. That is the basic setup done. So as these bars fill out, the training level is going to go up. Once they reach the level 25%, they will be available for deployment. They will be terrible divisions with barely any equipment, but simply keep pressing that button and they will all eventually filter out. They will be ready. And as you can see, these all have individual names. Every single one of our divisions is named after a channel member, a supporter of the Bitter Steel channel. I love these people. These are the people who allow me to do what I do, and I salute you, gentlemen. All right, the Rhineland remilitarized, which brings us to more construction. Now that it is no longer a demilitarized zone, we can build some fun stuff there. So with all these things already in the queue, we are going to add an aerodynamics and avionics facility, and we're going to build that in this tile of the Rhineland. The reason being, those airplane facilities are where we develop radar, or where I plan to develop radar. You'll see that later on, and it's where the first radar installation will be automatically built. It will give us good coverage over the Low Countries and partial coverage over northern France. I'm also going to drag that up a little so it gets built first. Next up, Fuhrerprinzip. I'm not going to call out all the focus, but this one is pretty important because it unlocks this, the inner circle. This is the Council of Goons for Adolf Hitler. You can have 3 out of a selection of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 available. Several of them are mutually exclusive. To keep things short, I tend to hire Goebbels, Todt, and then Bormann, simply because they provide the most value for a run like this. Have some political power, we're going to use it. We're going to hire Hjalmar Schacht, a MEFO Bills architect, so he's going to reduce the amount of consumer goods we'll be wasting and increase military factory construction speed. Next, we start the 4-year plan. This commits us to the 4-year plan and the MEFO Bills systems. Next up, we have 150 political power, and we have hired, where is he? Where is he? This bastard. The ghoul, Joseph Goebbels, giving us a little bit more war support. His war support puts us over the threshold of 50% war support, allowing us to go to war economy. One of the most important things to do early on is to get your economic law as high as possible, especially if you're a country that has a strong industrial base. This unlocks more of that industrial potential. One other thing that is of note, we will get events like this related to Austria. This all leads up to what is called the Anschluss, the diplomatic annexation of Austria. We need to have a certain army strength, 24 times the size of the Austrian army, before we can bully them into being annexed. Events like this build up to that by reducing the amount of strength we need and by weakening Austria by giving them terrible advisors. We always want to click the option that makes Austria bow down to us more quickly. The bottom option does virtually nothing. The top option costs us a little bit of political power, but it makes it easier to annex Austria, which is what we're after.
So we're all about challenges and strategy on this channel, and I know you guys are too. And I just found something that might interest you guys as well. Castle Duels, the sponsor of today's video, is a card strategy game that is super easy to pick up with a massive strategic depth, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this. Castle Duels is all about fast-paced, real-time PvP battles where you outsmart your opponents with clever deck building and tactics. Over 30 unique 3D units you can summon and merge during battles, each one having its own special abilities, so the strategies are endless, and the art style really gives it a fun vibe. And right now the game is hosting its epic Winter Wonderland event. There you can collect decorative cards, win the Frost Knight, and spin the festive roulette for legendary rewards. Looks pretty neat, to be honest. Download Castle Duels using the QR code on screen and the link in the description. Now, I love Castle Duels. It combines strategy with action, and the merging mechanics and those battle boosts can totally turn the tide of a match if you play them right. Now look at this. I merged my units and boom! We have snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. I love that feeling. Victory. So what are you waiting for? Dive into the magical world of Castle Duels. Download now using the QR code on screen or the link in the description and pinned comment, and don't miss out on that sweet Winter Wonderland event. Grab your deck and let's duel. Castle Duels is waiting for you with a special welcome bonus.
All right, we're going to go to that field marshal with his massive army. We'll select the cavalry and the mountaineer, and we'll convert them to Infanterie Division. These are the basic infantry we need anyway. These men will have virtually no guns. As you can see, we're 30,000 guns short, but you can also see that shortage is not going to last much longer. It will last for another mostly a year. So by the time we're ready to annex the Austrians, these men will be fully equipped, ready to go, rock and or roll. Now, equipment priority will be high for reinforcements. It will be high for garrisons. With that being done, we'll also train up another 24 divisions at a normal equipment priority. So once the standing army has been reinforced, these men can then be trained. That would bring us up to a total of 4 infantry armies. That's usually what I use to fight the Allies. I could be training these men, however, training is expensive. These are all greenhorns. Greenhorns giving expensive stuff tend to break that expensive stuff. Now, Air Force, we've got everything organized here. We're going to select all these airplanes next to Berlin, and we're going to hit this button, Merge Air Wings. There we go. Now all these air wings are combined into full strength or near full strength air wings. What we're also going to do is take one of these tactical bomber wings, the weakest one, and we're going to delete it. That sends its airplanes into reserve. The reason I do that is because I am not making tactical bombers, so every time one of these wings takes casualties, there's nothing to replace it. By moving those 70-ish airplanes into storage, I have a small reserve to replenish losses from. Now, for organizational purposes, I'm also going to take the CAS and the tactical bombers, move them to a different airfield, simply because I like to keep things a little bit more organized, and we'll keep exercising the airplanes. Speaking of exercising, we're building a bunch of ships. The subs go into the respective sub-fleets, and all the surface fleets go into the high seas fleet. Keep that exercising. Now, do not be alarmed, but we will get events like this, growing expenses of rearmament. So this is the timer I talked about. It started out at, I believe, 10% consumer goods. It's now up to 25% consumer goods total. Every month, it gets increased by another 3%, up to a total of 100. Once we reach 100, it will trigger even more penalties. Don't worry about it too much. We have ways of dealing with it. These price controls we're working on now, for instance, will help us delay the inevitable. There we go, price controls instituted. This gives us access to price control measures. We'll be using these to keep the MEFO Bills in check. What is mathematically best is probably to exploit the Gombosch trade treaty. I don't like doing this because this is effectively stealing Hungary's stuff, and while I don't particularly like Hungary, my mother taught me not to steal, so this feels wrong. But mathematically, click this one, it's probably best. So instead of stealing from the Hungarians, and because I don't want to make my mom angry, we'll be collecting scrap metals, which also reduces our consumer goods factor, and we will be using import tariffs. We will now be getting one less resource for every trade. So instead of getting 8 for one save, we get 7 for one save. It's not too bad early on because we're not importing that much. Now, our MEFO bills are a lot less terrible. Next up, MIOs. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what to pick for every MIO. The line of thought I always employ here is get stuff that give me more equipment. Whatever increases your production efficiency cap, production output, reduces the production efficiency cost, whatever gets you more stuff, prioritize that. After that is done, prioritize whatever gets you more soft attack, breakthrough, that sort of stuff, and don't look at the cost too much. The cost is really not that big of a deal. Reliability is not a huge factor either. So first more stuff, then better stuff by going for soft attack and breakthrough. For airplanes, same logic applies. Just get whatever gets you more airplanes, more production, and then either get air defense and air attack for your fighters and ground attack for your CAS. As for ships, really good question. I have no idea because I don't intend to use a lot of it. All right, Spain has gone to war with Spain. This is an excellent opportunity to get some volunteers sent. We'll send some volunteers. We can send 4, which is coincidentally the amount of fast units we have, along with air volunteers, 2 air wings. Perfect. We'll be sending them over to Spain. For Spain, we'll be using 1 wing of tactical bombers because they have all the range you need, really. Followed by 1 wing of fighters. Any fighter wing will do. Send them over there. And make sure that fighter wing is being reinforced. Never mind. Just send the fighter wing on air superiority and a tactical bomber wing on close air support. And our troops have arrived in Spain. Now, if you don't care about this at all, just draw a field marshal order somewhere or an attack order and press the play button and go. Just do this, press play, and walk away, and they will get the experience you're after. If you want to play a bit more methodically, just use them to constantly fight to get traits. These generals can get traits working on Panzer leader, cavalry leader, depending on the composition of the units you're using them for. Trickster can be achieved here in all sorts of terrain traits. If you want to micromanage this and be a really sweaty nerd, the Spanish Civil War is an excellent place to get a little bit of practice in. Also for the Air Force, keep them around where your army is fighting. They will get very nice amounts of air experience doing this. Just keep moving them around wherever the fight goes. Now, one little trick to getting your generals trained up is to send a general that is 1, not very high level, 2, has high attack stats relative to his level, and 3, doesn't have any traits. There's nothing under the trait list. Also, don't pick anyone that has a background trait here. These are what the leaders start with. That reduces their army experience gain. So that's one thing. What you then do is fight and build up experience towards certain traits. When a general has no traits, all experience is gained at the normal rate towards every other trait. Once one trait is unlocked and picked here, all experience for the other traits will be gained at a reduced level. So what you want to do is fight and get as much experience towards the trait up to 99% completion. When you get that, pause the game and change either the composition of the army, the terrain you fight in, or whatever other things are relevant. Like for Trickster, just stop attacking from flanks and only attack head on, just so that all those traits are leveled up to 99%, but never all the way there. That way, all of the other traits that you still want are still being gained at the maximum rate. Then when you have everything you want up to 99%, then you finish them off one by one. And we finished the project for our military engineering vehicles. Great. You will add these to the production queue. Edward here is now going to wait until he gets the next breakthrough point, after which we will get the Flammpanzer, the flamethrower tank. Very useful piece of kit. Production will add, where are we? Oh, there we are. Armored support vehicle, we'll add them to the list. 1 factory should do. We'll later upgrade that to 2. And we will take one of the improved light tank chassis away. Now, while we're going to war, we have a little bit of army experience. We're going to spend it. Spirit of the Academy. There are 2 schools of thought here. 1, get bold attack. It's usually the better choice. It's almost always the better choice. When your generals level up, they're more likely to level up their attack stats. Attack is super important. It does more damage on the attack and ironically more damage on the defense as well. This is very, very good. Other things that are good are inventive leadership. This is decent as well. Meticulous preparation, maybe if you're fighting somewhere that logistics really matter. What I also like is political loyalty. Yes, it gives you new generals with terrible traits. Politically connected and media personality are terrible, but Germany doesn't need a lot of new generals. It has a great deal of generals available already. Plus, it increases our party popularity stability modifier, meaning the more popular our ruling party is, in this case the fascists, the more they contribute to stability. The higher stability is, the more your country is, well, better. Let's pick political loyalty. We're now at 86%, so that gave us 5% stability. We have more army experience to spend. I like to pick motorization drive. State service the military can be good, but we really don't need it. Motorization drive means changing tank, motorized and mechanized templates is effectively free, so it will save us a lot of army experience in the long run since we have a lot of changes to make to those templates. We also have 100 political power available. We'll hire chief of the army. Now, I want Franz Halder, more attack. I'm a big fan of attack. Unfortunately, that is locked behind several military focuses, which we're not doing yet. We're focused on the economy for now. So instead, we will hire Ludwig Beck. He gives us the same amount of daily army experience, which is the main reason we want to hire these people early, and he improves our division organization, which is a decent trait nonetheless. We can switch them out later for army offense, but for now, organization is fine. With our slight contribution to the air war in Spain, we have air experience to use. We're going to use that to change our basic small airframes a little. These are not great airplanes, we can make them slightly better. So we'll keep the light machine guns and we will add double cannon ones, giving us an increased air attack. We will also add a light MG defense turret as well as a extra fuel tank, giving us more range. Same with basic close air support. We're simply going to add on bomb locks and we'll replace the light MG turrets with extra fuel tanks, more range on these babies. It's also October of 1936. A lot of our means of controlling the MEFO Bills have run their course. We're back over the 0% mark. They're costing us consumer goods again. Fortunately, we still have some things we can click here. Again, Gombosch Treaty. Click that if you don't have morals and your mama didn't teach you right. I won't. No, instead we will be implementing rations and wage controls. This cost us a total of 5% stability, but it does significantly reduce the amount of consumer goods we will be using here. And we have more than 50 experience. We'll quickly use that to get a spirit of divisional command. Maneuver warfare, really good pick. Speed's nice, coordination's nice. The other stuff have their uses, but maneuver warfare is pretty based. It is also tied to mobile warfare doctrine, so that is why you're seeing this and not something else there that you might be used to. Next up, if you're following the list, we're doing Accelerate the Rearmament program, setting us off with that big military buildup. This is going to give us also 2 military factories, which we will be adding to armored support vehicle, as well as 1 extra for toy artillery. Everything else should be fine. We'll make enough equipment of all other types to not really need more mills. And eventually we will pivot heavily into making aircraft. But for now, we're still a lot of guns short. We will not have a deficit for all that much longer, so a little bit, but we will be able to fix that relatively quickly, and then we can make more aircraft. Air is key to winning in Hearts of Iron. Speaking of air, we're going to hire a chief of the Air Force, Albert Kesselring. Now, if you're not like me and you want what's mathematically best, please hire Hermann Göring. The thought of that alone turns my stomach, so I will not hire Hermann Göring. He gives you air superiority. He gives you slightly less air experience gain, but he makes all of your aircraft cheaper, notably your fighters, which you will be producing in large numbers. As we're slowly working our way through the construction, we can build more civilian factories in this area now that we've leveled up some of our industry techs. So we'll click Westfalen, Hessen and the Rhineland again, and we will increase the amount of military factories in the area. We have 50 army experience. We're going to go to Spirit of Air Force Command. We'll get centralized control. This makes all of our missions more efficient and makes us better at detecting and thus shooting down enemy fighters. We have another 150 political power available. We are now going to hire Franz here, the Reichsminister for Labor. Yes, we'll take a small hit in stability and it will make resistance and compliance more difficult, but he makes up for that in his industrial boost. What we're also going to appreciate is an intelligence agency. Let's start making the Abwehr. At some point, Denmark's also going to offer a trade proposal. It's a minor thing, but it's a bit of a trap for your economy. Yes, this could be beneficial. It looks like very nice bonuses because they are nice bonuses. Anything relating to supply is a benefit. However, it also costs you 10% consumer goods factory factor, meaning we'll need more civilian factories for consumer goods, and the supply buffs don't do anything for us for another 2 years at least. So we have no need for Danish products. I'm sorry, Denmark, but no. All right, we have that one extra point now for the Flammpanzer. Get to work, Edward. And at about the same time, we have finished the aerodynamics and avionics facility, for which we will hire Henrik Fokke is pretty good, and von Braun is also a pretty good pick. Though I tend to go with Fokke because I do like my helicopters. All right, with the Abwehr established, we are going to do cryptology department, double radio interception group, unfortunately named pills, and invisible ink. An alternative could be the naval department or air force department. Both are decent, but I like the invisible ink because it gives me more overall intelligence on my enemies. As for spies, every spy we get, we're gonna dump into France for now. We also have more than 50 air experience. There are 2 picks to be made here. 1, industry liaisons giving us an overall industrial research bonus to air, or air crew surveys giving us cheaper air doctrine. Now, we have plenty of air experience incoming for air doctrine, so I don't think air crew surveys is that valuable. I tend to just go with industry liaisons. We also have more than enough political power at this point to hire Organization Todt, 75 political power, giving us construction speed bonuses across the board and construction technology research speed. This is good for our military buildup. Speaking of military buildup, once everything in this list has been built, everything we do now is building mills, military factories in every place that has 100% infrastructure. After those have been filled, we go down the list to 80% infrastructure and then further down until everything is filled up. All right, we have finished all but the last of the Scharnhorst battleships. That means we can now build other things. Now I'm going to show you what I use as Germany. I'll pick the best destroyer hull I can get. I'll put the cheapest light battery on there, the cheapest torpedo launcher on there. I'll give them the escort fleet MIO. That's it. That is the cheapest tugboat I can put out to sea. Don't need anything else on there. All this thing has to do is get in the way of mine enemies, and we'll be making these until the end of time, deploying them to the high seas fleet. Von Kleist is 99% towards being a Panzer leader, so I'll show you my trick. To get Panzer leader, you need a certain amount of armor ratio in terms of, you know, how many tanks you have compared to other divisions. We can change that equation by simply taking one of these 2 tanks, changing it into a motorized division. Now he no longer meets the requirements for being a Panzer leader. Therefore, he can no longer get experience towards being a Panzer leader. And as a result, he now only gets experience towards his other traits, like cavalry leader, which counts for motorized, yes. So it is what I mean by building up a trait to 99% and then making sure you don't meet the requirements to get any more of the experience for it. It's just the most effective way to level up these generals. Now, before we unpause, there's also a war going on in China, which means an excellent opportunity for more experience. We're going to send them volunteers. In this case, 6 infantry divisions. We'll take 6 of our more experienced ones. There we go. Split them off into a separate army. Send volunteers along with air volunteers. We can send 3 air wings and 6 divisions. Now, you might be asking, Bittersteel, why are you helping China? You should be helping Japan. Hear me out. The war in Asia for Germany does not matter. What does matter is getting more experience. We get the most amount of experience being allied with China, simply because of the way the air bases in this air zone are laid out. Siding with China gets you the best position to cover the entire northern China zone. Plus, the aggression of the Japanese army means you will be fighting a lot of defensive battles, getting you a lot of army experience as well. Yes, it weakens Japan overall. No, it doesn't matter in the slightest for our campaign. Now we'll send 3 air wings over there as well. I usually send 1 wing of fighters and 2 wings of bombers and send them on their merry way to China. And we'll cover the northern China air zone. And those divisions we send to China. We are going to position here Beijing, the tile below Beijing, and Tianjin. That's where most of the fighting is going to take place, and it is the most important area to cover. That is where the airbase is. We want to secure that airbase. All right, we're doing significant damage here. Our airplanes are dominating the air zone. We can make it even more effective by clicking more ground crews in the area. Bada bing, bada boom. We have finished the Anschluss. Yay, Austria will always say yes to the Anschluss on historical. We get a bunch of territory, political power, war support, stability, as well as a couple of free generals. Plus, we can use the Austrian gold to reduce the cost of our MEFO bills. They are now at 10.5%. Let's click that button, and they're now should be less than 10.5%. Yeah, 1%. Great. A couple of extra Austrian units as well. Convert them into basic infantry divisions and throw them into our army. And they can now all start exercising. All troops currently deployed and not engaged in active combat should be exercising, so they're no longer green. Now, we do have a lot of political power because we gobbled up Austria. Delicious, delicious Austria. Let's put it to good use. We're going to our military command. We're hiring Ferdinand Schoner, our infantry expert. Very nice to have. And then we're going to save up a little bit more political power, and we will hire either Reinhard Heydrich, or security main office director, or Canaris, the chief of the Abwehr. And we are getting events like this as well. These are going to pop up whenever, let's see here, whenever one of your chosen leaders, your council of goons, reaches a focus that is mutually exclusive with another path. This is where we either commit to Todt and keep him around, or we decide to pivot and replace Todt with Speer or Göring. Blech. In our case, we are not going to be replacing the man. He's fine where he is, so Fritz Todt has the complete trust of the Führer. That way we lock him in. Special project available now for the Rhineland. We get to work on radar. If you use von Braun, it takes 312 days. If I replace von Braun with Fokker, it takes 325 days. So yeah, the obvious choice here would be to pick Werner von Braun. However, I like to keep Fokker around so he gets a little bit more experience and he can get me those helicopters. I'm a sucker for those helicopters, I'm sorry. So radar it is. It unlocks the various radar buildings and modules for ships. Plus it gives us a first prototype radar installation here, which should cover a portion of the Benelux where much air fighting will be going on. Speaking of air, so we are picking up the production of basic small airframes. It is all looking up. It's looking up, yes. These are decent. All right, we have a spy network strength of 50% in France. We're going to select Wolf here, a spy that has 50%. We're going to set them to quiet intel network. That means the network is no longer active, air quotes, but mostly means that we still have the benefit of the network. It's just not growing. It's also much harder to detect. It's going to stay there at 50. Next up, we're going to prepare collaboration government. We are going to do several collaboration governments in France just to make them easier to capitulate. And the air experience is still flowing in whenever we can. We are simply going to increase the battlefield support doctrine here, 100 air experience each. Working our way down. I like to go with formation fighting, then down here all the way, and then grab battlefield support as well as ground support. I'll skip key point bombing and then just work my way down to forward interception all the way down. Now we demand a slice of Sudetenland. Goodbye, Czechoslovakia. You've lasted long enough. Now we have 4 spies. I've got 2 basically sitting back, ready to be used for collaboration governance, 1 holding court in France, holding that network active, and then the 4th one we're going to dump in Belgium, just so we can penetrate the Belgian defenses a little more easily when the time comes. All right, it's December of 37. We've got a massive stockpile of infantry equipment at this point. We're going to take all but 5 factories off infantry equipment. We're going to shift them all into our Air Force, so 15 on fighters, 5 on basic close air support. We'll add 1 mortar trucks, one more Todt anti-air, and we'll also start producing the tanks we so desperately want. Basic mediums. These are not going to be the world's greatest design. I recognize this, but they will do. We'll take the medium turret with the best, well, the 3-man medium turret. We'll add a close support gun for now. We'll add a radio, the best one we can find. We add wet ammunition storage for reliability. Yes. Reliability doesn't matter as much. I like to have vaguely reliable tanks that have decent speed. This allows me to, do stuff with them. I like to add sloped armor, even though it's not the world's greatest invention. And then I boost up the speed as high as this will go. And we'll add a heavy machine gun. So these are not the world's greatest tanks. I recognize this. I realize this. However, these are relatively cheap. They're effective. They will get the job done. I just realized I need to change this out for Christie suspension. And this is the basic medium tank we'll be using early on. We'll be improving this as we go. I want to get the speed up. I want to get the reliability up. I want more armor, more soft attack on these. But for now, these will do. And we will start producing these basic medium tanks. Let's just assign the next 15 factories to those. And it's January of 1938. We're days away from finishing the first Czechoslovakia focus, but January 1st is a good benchmark. At this point, we're shifting everything towards military production. So we're going to stop building in Moselland. We're going to finish up this one civilian factory in the Rhineland because it's had some work done anyway. And we're going to add more military factories. What we're also going to add are synthetic refineries in places where we have high infrastructure. And we're going to sprinkle them in with the military factories. The reason we want at least some of these refineries is, well, rather simple. If everything goes well, these are simply a nice addition. They give you a little more fuel, a little more rubber, make it easier for you to get your stuff done. If things go poorly and you're not able to secure total victory in the West and capitulate the Allies, these will be the lifeline you need to have access to any form of rubber, and they will definitely augment the amount of fuel you'll be able to get out of Romania. So consider these to be a fallback. Germany is a fuel and rubber hungry nation. It needs all the fuel and rubber it can get. Trade of rubber is difficult because the Allies control the vast majority of it. Even if Vichy France eventually pops up and restores your access to their rubber, it will not be enough. So the synthetic refineries are a good way of making sure that you can keep the fight going, even if you do not instantly win that first war with the Allies. Now, Sudetenland demanded, peace in our time ensured. Goodbye. And there we go. Optimize Reich services has been completed by Martin Bormann. When this thing pops up, you're going to want to go to your decisions. We now have additional decisions to develop parts of Germany. And since we are going to be building a lot in these territories, we would like to develop them. Ones that we definitely want are Western Germany as well as Central Germany. We have the political power for it, so let's take a look at where else we are building a lot. Southern Germany also could use a little bit of work. There we go. When these finish, they will give us an increased construction speed of 10%, as well as unlocking another building slot. Very nice. And there goes the war in Spain. Hurrah, that's over. So we can pull all those airplanes back. And now the fate of Czechoslovakia. Gobble, gobble. So the volunteers that return under Ewald von Kleist. Could have been better, could have been worse. Okay, I didn't really handle him very well, so I didn't get all that many traits, but fair enough. We'll convert all of these to Panzerdivision and we'll park them off somewhere near Berlin. We'll make use of these guys later. Now, while we're waiting for more medium tanks to be produced and more trucks, etc. being produced, we're gonna start working on our armor template. This is not great. This is what Germany starts with. We've used it for now, but it's by no means optimal. What we're going to do is slowly start increasing the size of this thing. So we'll bring it up to 18 combat width by adding 3 trucks, and we'll add 1 medium tank. I think we have enough medium tanks for the job, almost. That brings them up to 20 width. We're going to bring them up to a total of 30 combat width with as many tanks as will fit in there. But for now, we're somewhat limited by our lack of medium tanks. But this will be a slow and steady increase. What we're eventually going for is something like this. Just imagine the light tanks here to be medium tanks. So 9 tanks with 6 trucks. Yes, the current organization is a little on the low side. We want this to be over 30, but we don't have our doctrines yet, so this will go up. We're also going to remove the motorized recon and replace it with support anti-air, and we are going to be adding things like logistics companies as well, and then the engineer company can be replaced with either the assault engineer or the armored engineers. Both have their uses. And now for the fate of Czechoslovakia. We can either set up Slovakia as a puppet state. This is my preferred method of doing this. Gives us more war support. It gets rid of Czechoslovakia. We get Bohemia, Moravia, and one more territory, all with 50% compliance. A nice chunk of gold as well to get rid of our MEFO Bills. Get a nice puppet out of it. We do a nice, you know, a heckin' split of Czechoslovakia. We can either partition it with Hungary, though not that great, honestly, this option. Or all of Czechoslovakia belongs to the Reich. We still get the war support. We still get the territory with the compliance. We still get the gold. But we're occupying stuff that has really no value to us, plus it costs us a little bit of political power. If you really want to be bigger on the map, pick this, but we'll just set up Slovakia as a puppet state. This is probably the best option. Hungary gets a slice, Slovakia gets to exist, and we get 1, 2, 3, I think? Yeah, 3 territories with 50% compliance to start with. Now that we're actually occupying some land, we're going here. Division designer, create empty, mobile battalion, cavalry. Create 1 unit with just a single battalion of cavalry in it. Then we're going here, occupy territories, set everything to local police force, and the Infanterie Division will be replaced by Cavalry Template 1. It's the cheaper solution to the whole problem. There we go. And any additional factories can go into the BF-109s up to 20, then the JU-87s up to 10, after which we add more medium tanks to the mix. And looking at the numbers, we should be fine. Once all of those are filled, let's add another 5 to infantry equipment. Though, realistically, we have so much of the Austrian and Czech equipment, we don't really need many guns anytime soon. We're doing fine. As far as construction goes at this point, every now and then sprinkle in a synthetic refinery, but focus heavily on building more and more and more and more military factories. In terms of our resources, the rubber production is slowly starting to pick up, so we will eventually get more rubber out of our refineries. We will have the rubber we require. And now we have finished dive bombers. We can hire another member of military high command. Go away, Turkey. Hugo Sperla, close air support expert. A nice addition to our forces. Whenever Bulgaria asks you to recognize their claims, just click it. It really doesn't matter all that much. It just agrees with Bulgaria that they get control of, I believe, Thrace, Macedonia, southern Serbia, maybe Debar and central Macedonia. I'm not certain. But yeah, it just gives Bulgaria the right to occupy some of the territories in the Balkan. And we have finished our survivability studies. Time for some changes to the Air Force. So what we're going to be changing here is we're going to replace this turret with self-sealing fuel tanks, and we will be changing out these as well. We'll be replacing the dual cannons with quad heavy machine guns, and we'll be swapping out the offensive armament with 1 quad heavy, 1 quad light machine gun. It is slightly less air attack than if I were to use double cannon ones and quad light machine guns, yes, but one, they're more agile, and I believe, unless my math is horribly wrong, they're also slightly cheaper, so we'll be making more of these airplanes. Again, we can improvise and improve this as we go. For now, these will go into production, and with 4 of our glorious armies deployed, and then 4 medium tank divisions ready and almost quite equipped, so I'm short about 150 medium tanks, not bad. We'll queue up another 2 medium tank divisions. We'll get them finished eventually, and we will queue up another 24 infantry divisions. We will get those deployed roughly on time as well. We'll also start putting these troops where they belong. We'll take 1 army, put them on the French border. We'll take another army and we'll put them in the Königsberg pocket over there. And then the remaining 2 armies can go under the Field Marshal order over here. The way you draw a Field Marshal order is instead of selecting the army, select the main Field Marshal icon. And then any of these individual armies who do not yet have their own personal like army level order. These two armies do. They can now get a field marshal order. You do click this, you hold shift and you right click and drag all the way along until you get to where you want to go. And now you have one continuous field marshal order that groups the generals under it. There we go. And we'll draw a couple of offensive lines so the units can get their required planning bonus. As for the armor, I would like to position them roughly here in the soft underbelly of Poland, ready to strike towards Warsaw and Lutsk. One more change we're going to make is our base infantry division will have support anti-air integrated into it. We're almost quite at the level where we need to be to fully equip everyone. By the time we're ready to go to war, everyone will have their AA. It is lovely jovely. Everything's coming up Milhouse.
Everything's coming up Milhouse!
Having just finished Adopt New Panzer Doctrine, we can also hire a military theorist. We will hire Heinz Guderian, the Blitzkrieg theorist. More speed on the armor and more mobile warfare, well, cheaper mobile warfare doctrines. Beautiful. And we will also hire Evan Rommel, the armor genius. And as we go, we keep adding more factories, more to the tanks, more to the air, more to the CAS. Extra support equipment, why not? Extra CAT, extra AA, extra artillery. We are building so many military factories, we can always add a little bit more. Speaking of building, to prepare for the next stage of our campaign, we're going to build up an additional airbase. We're going to build one here in Moselland. And while things are moving along, we're also going to click Develop Ersatzmaterial. We are trying to stave off the MEFO Bills for as long as possible, but war is close, and with war will come relief. And another army coming online. We'll put them on the Dutch border. We'll start threatening the Dutch a little bit. Now that we have advanced Panzer research here, we have access to a couple of better tank variants. Now for the medium tank, I'll be using for the remainder, or at least for the foreseeable future, this one. So I've taken the Panzer IV that we get from the Focus Advanced Panzer Research, and I've made some changes. Christie suspension here for speed, riveted armor to keep costs slightly down, engine as high as it will go, armor up to level 3, 3-man turret with a heavy, or rather a medium howitzer installed, best radio I can fit, the easy maintenance module to make it slightly cheaper, more reliable, sloped armor because I'm a sucker for sloped armor, and then wet ammunition storage for slightly more reliability. Is it the best design ever made? No. Will it serve? Yes. May 1939, we have another special project available, the helicopter. I would be an idiot to pass these up. These are pretty neat. So around this time, Italy will have done its appropriate focus and we can invite them into our faction. It's fine. They'll ask to join even. So welcome aboard, Italy. We're not going to use you in the war other than as a big distraction. But, well, welcome aboard, Mussolini. Now you get to see how a real leader wages a war and wins it. Alright, we have Instill Auftragtaktik, which means Ludwig Beck is now to be replaced with Franz Halder for more attack. We now have a couple of units promoted to Field Marshal. We now hire von Rundstedt on the infantry side of things. We can assign a bunch of generals as well. Just pick generals with high attack and the infantry leader trait for your infantry. So the little helmet here, infantry officer. These men will serve to command the infantry armies. Then Ewald von Kleist, I'm actually going to replace with this man, Franz Böhmer, who is a level 2, 6 attack, brilliant strategist, offensive doctrine, aggressive assaulter. This man, well, everything you want out of a general. I'll level him up and replace and upgrade him to a field marshal later on. For now, he can be under the command of Gunther von Kluge, aggressive assaulter, offensive doctrine, organization first. One more focus and then we go to war. Establish the Buna Werke for more synthetic refinery output. Rubber will be our Achilles heel today. Fortunately, we have built up quite some synthetic refineries. We can build up more, and then we build up, well, more mills, more mills, more mills for the enemy that is still to come after the Allies. Can you guess who it is? In any case, it's June of 1939. We have 100 civilian factories. We have 88 military factories. We have a fully equipped, fully trained army of infantry. So that is 120 divisions, and then 6 tank divisions ready to rock and or roll. I think I have almost entirely replaced the medium tanks with lights. just a couple lacking, 180 lacking. In terms of Navy, we have 63 surface vessels ready to bring us to the United Kingdom. And we have an Air Force in the makings that is growing by the day. Plus, they're very experienced, which is very nice. And with war on the horizon, no immediate need to do anything, particularly with the political power. So I could quickly hire Chief of the Navy, Erich Raeder, just to give the surface fleet a slight edge should we run into the Royal Navy. We might still go to extensive conscription, but we almost have 500,000 men in reserve, so this is a thing we'll do later on. It's not an immediate need. Well, the MEFO Bills are getting up there, so we have exhausted, or rather almost exhausted, our means of reducing them. They're up to 52%. Got one more focus. After this one is done, there we go, the Buna Werke. We go for Danzig Or War, the final straw. This is where we turn it all around. And if my math isn't failing me, that should be pretty damn close to the historical date for the war. Just 70 more days, a little bit more training, a little bit more production, and then we will show you just how easy it is to deal with the Allies. Now, of course, before we get anything done, we do have to spend some of our army experience before we forget. Let's go down here, delay, elastic defense, and then there's a choice to be made here. Blitzkrieg is good. It buffs your tanks. It buffs your tanks considerably. Now, I am of the opinion that mobile infantry is actually potentially better because of the buffs to your infantry, meaning you need fewer infantry / motorized infantry in your tank divisions because the ones that you do keep in there have more organization, so you have fewer of them as a requirement to meet your organization needs, meaning you have more tanks available to you, while Blitzkrieg is mostly focused on getting your tanks more organization. Now, as for mobile warfare doctrine, there are two trains of thought here. I'm not a spreadsheet nerd, so I don't know which is mathematically best. That said, all those mathematically best choices are always done in a vacuum, and you should always take that with a grain of salt. That said, I kind of like Armored Spearhead because it says Blitzkrieg right there and it's very thematic. On the other hand, mobile infantry is actually very good because it makes the infantry that you do include in your tank divisions better, plus, you know, your regular infantry. And as a result, those tank divisions can have more tanks in them because the infantry they still retain are better. As a result, you end up with stronger individual tank divisions, even if the tanks themselves don't get that much better. So choices to be made here. I'm sure we'll pick something that works. I think today we'll go with mobile infantry. That lands us on fire brigades, the first tech of modern blitzkrieg before the war even starts. Not bad. As for the air doctrine, we have taken the entirety of the battlefield support tree except for the key point bombing, which is honestly not that valuable if you're not using tactical bombers to do strategic bombing. As for the navy, well, we're not going to use the navy other than to just invade the UK. So what I recommend you do if you want to play a German naval game, there are two trains of thought. Submarines, the submarine meme, get trade interdiction and just take everything on the right hand path, and then whatever you want. It's the value is in the right hand path. If you want a proper true German naval game, go with carriers and base strike. It looks like we'll finish our 3 collaboration governments in France, allowing us to do some memes. We've also finished our small airframes, so we can upgrade the Air Force before the war starts. Now, realistically, of course, we will not actually have any of these built. We'll just take the improved small airframe. We'll take the best engine we can, which is level 3 at this point. We'll cram this thing chock full with heavy machine guns. We will take the extra fuel tank. We'll slap on some self-sealing fuel tanks as well as armor plates. These are slightly more expensive. They're capped out on weight, but they will be more than sufficient to bring us glorious victory in the skies over the UK. I made a mistake. I clicked the wrong button. It's a collaboration government in the UK. No, I'm not restarting this. No. What I wanted to do was get a collaboration government in France. So we would have 3 collabs in France. Unfortunately, I accidentally did one in the UK instead of 3 in France. Doesn't matter. I'll just explain what the meme is, and then you will just have to, do it for yourself. So if you have 3 collabs in France, you 1. defeat them very easily, but you always do. When that happens, Vichy France will form via event down south, and you will then also get an event about, well, whatever of France you occupy, asking if you want to set up a collaboration government. This happens when compliance in an occupied region, so this blue bar, reaches 90%. It will be 90% because 3 collaboration governments mean the territory you capture of that nation after capitulation will be at 90% compliance. The beauty of that is you form a very highly integrated puppet out of that collaboration government. That collaboration government counts as a version of France that controls Paris. That triggers a different event, meaning that a puppet version of France controlling Paris absorbs Vichy France with all its troops, all its navies, gets all of those corps. And as a result, you have a massive, very integrated French puppet giving you a ton of factories and giving you the option to integrate them later on using the subject mechanics, meaning if you push their autonomy down enough by either giving them equipment or building in their territory and spending some political power whenever the bar here has gone all the way over to the left, you can eventually annex them virtually for free, get their ships, get their troops. I'm now going to shift all of my spies into the Soviet Union. I'm going to move them over to the far eastern front of the Soviet Union, with the goal being of building a collaboration government there. Soviets are annoying to capitulate because of how big they are, and collaboration governments just mean you can capitulate the country a lot sooner, in addition to having more compliance when they do finally capitulate. And now this is a little late because I admit I forgot, so let's just do it now. We'll take our Panzer IV Ausführung C, so the basic medium tank we're making right now. We're going to take the turret off, replace it with a light fixed superstructure. We're going to replace the main armament with a flamethrower, and we're going to shift this from medium tank to flame support company. We're going to save that. Actually, we could potentially just slow it down, like increase the armor, reduce the engine, keep the speed more or less aligned with the other tanks, bring the cost down as well this way, just something like that. Honestly, it doesn't really matter too much. Something like this will do. And now we can start producing these as a flame tank. Flame tanks are pretty neat in that they have massive bonuses to, well, just about anything, and we'll be stopping the production of improved light tanks. They have served their purpose. They are no longer required. I'll even take a factory of guns. I'm already making plenty. I have 30,000 in stockpile. Should have done this a little sooner, but now we can start making some basic medium flame tanks, and we can introduce them to our armies. So war is about 20 days out. That's fine. We'll send the Navy back home. A couple of last minute repairs. Armies are deployed already. Let's make sure the Air Force is as well. So we'll take the majority of our fighters and we'll put 600 in Eastern Germany. We'll put another 600 in Königsberg. We'll take the majority of our CAS. We'll put 600 in this airfield here to provide close air support over Western Poland. And then the remaining 400-ish go to Königsberg as well and provide close air support in Eastern Poland. We have a couple of fighters left in reserve on this airbase in Western Germany. We're going to use half of them to get air superiority in Western Germany. The other half we'll use for air superiority in Northwest Germany. The reason being is we're going to get bombed. It's not going to be shocking or decisive in any way, but if you can stop the enemy from bombing you, all the better. We have plenty of political power as well. We are now going up to extensive conscription because we will need more troops when we do finally attack the Soviet Union, and it's a good buffer in case we do have some unforeseen losses here. So with 1 day left to go, final check, Air Force up over Poland, Air Force up over Western Germany and Northwest Germany. Navy is sitting pretty in port. We'll take the surface fleet, put them on strike force in the Eastern North Sea, the Lower Baltic, and this area here between Denmark. That's fine, just to prevent any shenanigans. The UK is hard-coded not to initially commit forces to the Eastern North Sea, so don't worry about this too much. They're not going to put the entire home fleet here and sink your stuff, at least not straight away. We'll also take the Field Marshal Gert von Rundstedt, click motorization priority twice, assign more trucks, and we will do the same with von Kluge's army or army group, increase the motorization, get more trucks out there. Poland refuses, they always refuse, and that is going to give us a war goal. There we go, Poland refuses to see Danzig as expected. Glorious, this is going to give us corps on Danzig and Gdynia and a war goal. and we can now start business. We also have a prototype decision here. I don't really know what the best option is for these helicopters. They're all pretty neat. Usually I go with speed and maneuverability. It's what you'd expect from a helicopter, right? As for focuses, around the Maginot. Yes, the next target is already marked for death. We're going to keep the game paused. We'll declare war on Poland. We're not going to call any of our allies in. We don't need any of our friends for this. War were declared. Bada bing, bada boom. We are going to take the main army group sitting on the Polish border and simply attack using an aggressive order. We're going to take the main army group sitting in Königsberg, or like the sub-army group in Königsberg. Again, attack aggressively. These guys here next to Danzig, half of you attack the unit below Danzig. The other half walk into Danzig itself. The units here next to Gdynia pin these units in place by attacking them in Gdynia, and these units here attack these units there to pin them into place. The idea is this will allow us to seize Danzig early and quickly. Now for the main event, the armor, they will penetrate deep into enemy territory and will start driving them up towards Lodz, Warsaw, and then on towards the hinterlands where all the other victory points. Yes, I'll play this slowly and I'll do all of the micro on screen so you have an idea of what needs to be done to win this war quickly. Let's get cracking then, shall we? Right. When Germany goes to war with the MEFO Bills, the glorious MEFO Bills, we get this event, the future of the German rearmament program. Rearmament has always been our goal, transfers the MEFO Bills into an economy of conquest. Essentially, it just steps it up a notch. The scheme has been revealed. It was a trap all along. The only way to sustain it now is to seize other people's gold to fix it until we are able to reach that autarky focus. The other option is the program is too expensive. We're gonna try and fix things. This essentially dismantles your entire economy. There is also no recourse. So you click that bottom option, you permanently disfigure your economy. It becomes worthless. Do not click that button if you've committed yourself to the 4-year plan. Whatever you do, don't click this. It will break your country. Okay, top option it is. Unfortunately, Hjalmar Schacht will be retired. We will be replacing Hjalmar with probably Walter Funk. He is more or less comparable. As you can see, green bubbles across the board. We have total air superiority. This is virtually a walk in the park. I'm playing at speed 3, so not too slow, not too fast, just right. And I'm using the armor here to constantly move towards victory points. Once I've defeated a unit like this cavalry, I will attack it again before it is able to fully recover its organization, allowing me to very easily keep pushing it back. I concentrate my armor on taking victory points as well as seizing these supply hubs, making it more difficult for Poland to defend itself as more and more of its territory comes under my sway. If they don't have access to their supply hubs, they cannot effectively fight either, making it easier for me to keep pushing. And now from here, from Lodz, I'm going to drive along the railway to Warsaw. North. Everything's going well. The plan for the armor is twofold here. I'm going to delete that front line because they're being weird. First of all, punch through to Lodz and Warsaw to secure the area. Secondly, I'm going to run amok down here in take Krakow, Kielce, the other victory points further in inland. And thirdly, yes, my plan is actually threefold. I really said I suck at math. We're going to cut off most of the Polish army here. We're pushing the tanks north. Meanwhile, the forces in the Königsberg pocket will push south. We will meet in the middle and terminate Polish resistance here. All right, we've seized Warsaw. And the drive continues. Deutschland siegt am aller Fronten. There we go. That is most of the Polish army already defeated. Beautiful. Now on to Krakow, another major victory hub. It's not a victory hub, it's a victory point or a supply hub. A victory hub doesn't exist. Anyway, other than that, again, got the Air Force up. We're trading very favorably in the sky. Like I said, the Allies are going to come out and try to bomb us. We're holding them off pretty well, so not too much bombing going on here, and we're trading very favorably in the sky. We are outnumbered more than 2-1, but we've lost no fighters. They've lost 12 fighters, so I'd say we're doing well here. Over Poland itself, nothing but green air. Yeah, they are being annihilated on the ground and in the skies. Beautiful. All of these spare dockyards we are seizing from the Poles. Wow, they built a lot of dockyards in Gdynia. Okay, all of those dockyards are being put to use making convoys. Gonna need convoys to get places. It's a shockingly large amount of convoys, I have to say. They usually don't build that many. And Poland is 90% towards capitulation, 117,000 casualties. We've been at this for 8 days. Couple more victory points to be seized, and then it's all over. 100% towards capitulation in 10 days. Again, what I did, focus on a couple of close by major supply hubs and victory points like Lodz and Warsaw, ensure the encirclement of the Polish army on the border with our own territory by cutting north from Lodz and south from the Königsberg pocket, and then deep penetration strikes using the armor, driving along railways, capturing victory points and supply hubs, and keep moving forward. No stand-up fights if we can avoid them. Simply take territory, take victory points. The goal is not to eliminate every Polish soldier in the field. The goal is to capitulate Poland quickly. And this was quickly. Another 25,000 guns for the... well, guns for the guns god, I guess. And we move the armor, and now we can move the entire army closer. We'll move 24 divisions to the Belgian border, and that leaves us with 2 more armies that I could move to the back line here somewhere. They're not going to be immediately required. There we go. We'll take the full complement of armor and put them on these 3 tiles. 1, 2, 3, with an attack order leading towards Amsterdam and The Hague. We'll move all of our fighters over to this airbase here, at least the ones that we can fit in there, and the ones that are not currently stopping the enemy bombing, and we'll put them over the Benelux region. As for our CAS, we'll spread them out over the other air bases in the region, again putting them over the Benelux. Fun thing, now that we've actually capitulated a country, we can see what the gold reserves actually do. So, MEFO Bills are gone, Economy of Conquest is in. This is essentially still MEFO Bills, slightly changed up. If we occupy a lot of non-core territory, the negative penalty to our consumer goods is going to go up quicker. It's already at 69.5%. If it ever reaches 100, it will get worse. You know, by the amount at the bottom, 20% factory output and dockyard reduction, as well as another 10% factories put on consumer goods. Not great. How do we fix this? Well, like I said before, autarky achieved. However, that's, well, it's not exactly within our reach. Not yet, anyway. We have ways around that, though. We can seize gold reserves of every country we capitulate. We have just capitulated Poland, giving us access to the Polish gold reserves. We click that button. Poland becomes, well, a little less compliant, but our economy of conquest is reduced by 29.5% consumer goods factor. That is a pretty good deal. Let's see what we have now. There we go, we're down to 40%. And we can do that for every country we capitulate, and the bigger the country's economy, the more the payout. So Luxembourg's not going to give us all that much, but France, oh, France, baby, not to mention the UK. Having started a war, of course, our volunteers from China return. Have no immediate use for them, just going to park them near Berlin somewhere. Right, with around the Maginot still progressing, we are going to assign 3 of our armies to the Dutch front. So we'll do the Field Marshal order once again, and around the Maginot we go. Next up, Wässerübung. Gotta catch them all. We'll take these 6 units that just came back from China, put them on the border with the Danes. We're now going to declare war on the Netherlands and just the Netherlands. We're not going to call any of our allies in. They will also join the allies. Now, we have war goals on Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I could declare all 3 at once, but there is very little value in doing so. The reason we take out the Netherlands first is because Belgium does not station troops in the border between the Netherlands and Belgium. They're trying to focus as many of their troops as they can on the German border. If we can capitulate the Dutch quickly, we can suddenly confront the Belgians with the fact that there is now a massive open border with Germany that they don't have troops stationed on, and there are fast German units, namely these tanks, ready to exploit that fact and drive into Antwerp, Ghent, Brussels, Leuven, and simply penetrate right through. Even if they get divisions in position, they will not have enough entrenchment to really resist us. So we are going to make their day very, very bad. We're going to start by punching our armor straight in there, and we drive on to Utrecht, Amsterdam, The Hague, and Rotterdam, along with massive air support as well, naturally. As you can see, the armor is doing well. And the Dutch are, yeah, I panned away because I saw a notification somewhere. Yet the Dutch are gone. Drive into Amsterdam, The Hague, Utrecht. Sometimes you also have to take Rotterdam, but they're effectively gone. The entire border with Belgium is wide open. We're now going to declare war on Belgium. We're going to keep this army separate. We're going to focus the army now on the Belgian border. An attack order there. And the armor is going to be focused again on the Belgian border with orders to penetrate fast. Go in hard and fast, as the kids say. And we continue the drive south. The infantry following behind hit B. What that does is order these guys to strategically redeploy, meaning they move more quickly and just getting into position. And the armor is already getting in there, and we can attack using the infantry as well. Just quickly pin the Belgian forces in place. Drive in there. We've taken Antwerpen. There we go. So Belgium capitulates slightly differently now than they did before. Their surrender limit is actually irrelevant. They will on historical capitulate if you take Antwerp, Liège, or Brussels, I believe. I'm not sure about Arlon. I don't think Arlon counts. No, Brussels, Antwerp, Liège. If you take any of those three, they will capitulate via event, as you've just seen, and it is hilarious. Again, we move the troops into position and head for France. The armor will rush to the coast, Kortrijk near Lille, and their goal will be to push along the coast towards Le Havre and then cut south towards Paris. And once the fighting shifts to northern France, so too does our air support. We shift that to northern France as well. And again, just attack using the infantry. We can take it. And again, I'm using the armor to bypass the enemy, creating encirclements wherever I can so I don't have to fight divisions twice. If they're dead, they're dead. I don't have to worry about them. A couple of things you want to push for quickly are Amiens, a local supply hub, Dieppe and Le Havre, victory points and supply hubs, and they will give you the staging area you would need to push on to Paris. And again, total air superiority. The French Air Force is not looking too hot. Again, the brunt of the fighting will be borne by the armor, and the armor is magnificent. And there we go. With Paris captured and our collaboration governments in place, the French are no longer a concern. A bunch of free guns, and I always establish Vichy France. I simply don't want to occupy everything myself. We'll just make them a valuable partner, I guess. Just mop up whatever remains of the British forces in the area. There's always some. There's some Dutch exile forces there. Kill them off as well. Since we're here, quickly declare war on Luxembourg and finish them off. Let's also seize some Dutch and Belgian gold reserves. Oh, I almost forgot. You also have campaign instructions against the French, giving you very good modifiers in combat. But again, my air superiority and armor is so good that I completely forgot to use it. This will be helpful against the UK, I guess. And now we wait for Wesseübung. We have defeated the Benelux as well as France in 10 days. Extra factories we have, simply distribute them across your production lines. We are making what we need to make. If there's something you want more of, it's most likely going to be fighters and CAS. And Vichy France also makes a relatively valuable trade partner in terms of rubber. And there goes Luxembourg. Might as well steal their gold as well. Oh, and some French gold. So how is our economy of conquest looking? Not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Luxembourg doesn't do much for us. We're now going to set up to take out the United Kingdom. But, you know, while we're here, Denmark is next on the chopping block just as soon as they finish their Wesseübung. We're going to move one more army towards the Hamburg Kiel region. We'll be using these to invade Norway afterwards. You don't have to. I just like doing it to be somewhat historically accurate. And then the other armies I'll be spreading out along the French coast, getting these guys into position for the inevitable assault on the United Kingdom. With my armor being close by, I will be shipping them in from the port of Antwerp, usually towards wherever I'm able to make landfall. Now, for the Air Force, we're going to take all of our fighters, or at least as many of them as we can spare, and put them in the Calais airbase, and we'll be fighting over the English Channel using these guys. As for our CAS, we're also going to group them up in the Benelux region, and we're going to put them over the English Channel as well, with their plan being to to naval strike. We're going to try and bomb the hell out of the Royal Navy. So we'll be sinking reasonable numbers of stuff in the Channel, and we're trying to find the Royal Air Force. It doesn't seem to be committing to the English Channel, so what you could do is always peel a couple of these fighters off, 2 per air zone, maybe 3, just to contest the air over the Benelux, northern France, eastern France, just to get an idea of where they're hiding their annoying airplanes, and if we can shoot them down, glorious. Probably southern England as well. It's probably where they're committing a lot of air. There we go. Now we're definitely contesting their air, and we are shooting down a lot of it. We're also sinking a lot, or at least damaging a lot of enemy ships. Damaged ships go to port. They're not projecting power, meaning we have a way into the UK if we so chose. Considering you've just seized the French warfare facility near Paris, might as well put one of our guys in there, and we're gonna have him work on the super heavy howitzer. It's gonna take 234 days. It's not gonna be relevant for this war, but it's very nice to have. This is an incredibly powerful piece of kit. All right, that concludes Wesseübung. We'll declare war on the Danes. The Danes will give up virtually instantly, so you don't need to commit a lot of troops to it. Let's get Operation Sea Lion in. That'll help us take them out. There we go. Denmark surrenders. We will protect them. Always pick that option, and there we go. Nice little puppet out of the whole deal. How are we going to invade Norway? Well, we're going to use the army that we just put here near Kiel, and we're going to make sure we have individual naval invasion orders of 2 divisions each. All the way from the port of Stavanger down towards Kristiansand and the tile next to Kristiansand. The Navy is still out there on strike force. Could set them to naval invasion support. It's not a big deal. And if we have any spare air forces, we can move them over to this airfield there and to provide some air cover in southern Norway. The main bulk of the air force remains over England, the English Channel, and some parts of northern France, just to keep shooting down the UK's air force, keep degrading their combat efficiency, and sinking the Navy. While all that's going on, keep deploying additional air wings, training them. Of course, don't want to send untrained air wings into battle. And whenever you have additional airplanes, again, just keep putting them up somewhere in a safe-ish area where you can organize them, deploy the air wings, train the air wings until they're at least level 2. So level 1 is terrible, level 2 is functional. And once they are ready, throw them into the meat grinder, the aluminum grinder. Oh yeah, we're trading very favorably in the air. Our naval invasion is prepared. We'll now declare war on Norway. We're still not going to call anyone in. We don't have to. The reason we're not hitting Oslo is because the area around Oslo is remarkably well defended. It's not going to help them in the long run, but it is remarkably well defended. And as soon as we start landing near the ports, assign divisions to cut off the garrisons and attack from the flanks as well. More firepower brought to bear, the better. There we go. We have achieved naval landing. 14 additional divisions being ferried in. We will make it Norway, Germany, and simply battle plan your way north. We're not looking to capitulate the Norwegians. Would be nice, but it's not necessary. The Norwegians are now involved in the war. We're going to take our navy back. We're going to set them to naval invasion support in the English Channel, and that is what we're going to focus on now. We are going to take the forces stationed here near Dunkirk, and we're going to prepare the next naval invasion. This one is going to be quick and dirty. We're simply going to brute force our way through. We're going to hit Dover and the 2 tiles next to Dover, as well as Portsmouth and the tile next to Portsmouth. And while the enemy superiority is still nearby, we can definitely bring them to their knees by continuously bombing them, and like now, eventually they will send portions of their fleet back to repair, giving us small windows of opportunity in which we can launch our naval invasion. So we'll simply keep our fleet here on naval invasion support. We'll plan the naval invasions, keep the air force up overhead and the bombers bombing, and eventually we will find a way to England. We're also going to get these events from Sweden. Do whatever you want with them. I usually just keep bullying Sweden. They tend to just give in every single time. While that naval invasion is being prepared, we're going to take a couple of our armies away. So we have these 24 divisions, an additional army. We're going to move them to the border with Yugoslavia. Let's draw a front line there. I hate drawing some of these front lines, like so. And then another army here, or the other one, doesn't really matter which of these. We're going to move them to the border with Romania. The goal of this initial war is to get as much out of it as possible. We can capitulate the United Kingdom virtually at will. I will draw the Irish into this war through the focus Operation Green, and at the same time I will justify a war goal on Yugoslavia. That will draw in Yugoslavia as well as Romania into this war. Both of these, well, all three of them, not a single one of those is a major power, so the entirety of the Allies still hinges on the United Kingdom. As soon as the UK capitulates, the whole faction caves. The main goal is simply make the Allies faction slightly larger by including targets that we have our eyes set on anyway. Speaking of, I'm going to start justifying a war goal on Yugoslavia. The area you'd claim doesn't really matter. 6 political power cost 30 days. All right, we've finished Operation Sea Lion, so we'll get the Irish involved as well, Operation Green, and we are now ready to invade the UK as soon as we get the required invasion preparation. Now we wait to secure the sea zones again. Now, if this is taking a little time and the British aren't pulling their fleet out to come and play and hopefully get bombed, what you can also do is take the Navy out and set them either on strike force to attack whatever they can catch, or on convoy raiding. Well, it's taking a little longer than usual, but we have more than degraded the UK's Air Force capabilities. Just putting all of our air over the channel and just trying to eke out that last couple of percent of supremacy. They've really committed to putting their entire darn navy here, which is unfortunate. Usually it's not this pronounced, but with a little bit more intel and a little bit more air superiority, we will eventually get that naval supremacy. Now, what we can also do is take all of our tactical bombers, move them over there, and then put them over southern England using Port Strike. That attacks the ships that are currently docked. That's a pretty decent way also of trying to get them off our back. Well, off our back. Trying to get them to stop being annoying. Port strikes do target the ships in dock, meaning if they get damaged, they go straight into repair, and they're also not effective at projecting naval supremacy. All right, our justification on Slovenia is done. We'll simply declare the war. That is going to get Yugoslavia involved as well as Romania. Simply keep troops on the border. There's really no reason to do much more than a little border clashing. Now, if we are still facing trouble for the UK, what we could do at the expense of having a slightly more complicated peace deal is call Italy in. Italy can prove to be a bit of a distraction. Simply call them to arms. They will distract the British in Egypt and the Mediterranean, causing them to have to redeploy their ships somewhat. This is going to see our naval superiority at some point go up as well. Next up, Zentrale Planung. Next up, a quick dab down the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. This should give us a bit of a timer to keep the Soviets off our back. You know, I don't trust Stalin. When you go to war with Yugoslavia, Croatia under Pavlic pops up as well. Simply invite them to your faction, get it over with, and assist them in conquering the area if you really want to. And there we go. Green Seas achieved. We have our naval invasion underway. A little slower than I would have liked, but it's still nowhere near the danger zone, which is early 1941. Just before Japan goes to war with the Philippines, and after that it goes to war with the colonial powers. That's when America gets drawn into the Allies. We are on our way, and as soon as our forces start getting underway, we are going to shift the focus from bombing the English Channel to bombing southern England, as well as fighting over southern England, because that is where our forces now need to land and where we need to assist them in landing. Dedicate some firepower to that, naturally. And the ships are en route. The UK is defending itself, but with our air cover and naval cover, naval gun support, we should be fine. We attack the ports, we attack the tiles next to the ports to provide supporting attacks there, and then simply spread out as much as we can. Once you've taken an airbase like here and a naval base, so you have some supply connection, we're going to shift the Air Force in there as well, so we can provide more effective air cover. And we've taken a naval base as well. Let's get more air cover in, and we move forward. With the area secured there, we're going to bring in our armor. 6 armor divisions should be sufficient. Start by shipping them straight out into Dover. The UK is going to counterattack, but it will most likely be too little too late. Unlike in previous patches though, the UK does commit significant forces to its own defense. So this is not the walk in the park that it used to be. Keep that in mind. We'll also bring in the rest of the infantry, these 14 divisions of the army that made the naval invasion, and start taking ground. We want to establish something of a beachhead so we're not just stuck on the beaches ready to be repelled by the British. But with our air power overhead, yeah, they're down to using garbage. We got 2,000 high quality fighters flying overhead. And then we steadily advance. Forward, forward, forward. Capture ground wherever we can. The armor has also reached its position. We're going to move them towards Bristol. There are some planes there where they can maneuver. The idea is take Bristol to cut off the entirety of Cornwall, mop up Cornwall, and then through the plains around Birmingham, Leicestershire, Nottingham, Sheffield, push north to capture Liverpool and Hull as well. More infantry is coming in. I'm not bringing in overwhelming forces, so I could dump an entire field marshal's worth of troops in there, but that will aid me nothing. It will simply result in much too much supply being wasted. I simply cannot supply those troops, so I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, I'm going to use 1, maybe 2 infantry armies there, along with the armor, where the armor will take the brunt of the whole thing. Again, the armor is quite good. It should be able to do the job just fine, along with the air cover. We're doing just fine. Let's seize Bristol, move north. And Bristol seized. Glorious. And now roll down to Plymouth. Now we're making preparations to encircle London as well. Keep attacking, keep them on their toes, never allow them to recover. Always push forward. Don't give them an inch. Don't give them any time to dig in, reinforce whatsoever. Always keep moving forward, aggressively attacking. Oh dear, it appears our navies are touching tips here. Might want to set your navy to disengage and go hide. It will be very unfortunate if we were to, lose all of it. Anyway, we're moving to encircle London. Once London is... no encircling there. We'll simply take it. With the armor done in Plymouth and Cornwall, we'll simply drive them north through the plains of the Midlands, I guess, and cut off Wales, reduce the armed forces in Wales to nothing, encircle and destroy, encircle and destroy. So the UK is close to defeat, 75% towards capitulation. We don't want to do it too quickly. We need to finish the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact before we kill the UK, because... One moment, just setting up the next step. Because the next focus we want to take is form die Zentrale Planung. This makes our industry even better, but we can only do this once we're at war. We would like to get this done. It's just nice to have. If not, and you somehow fail to get the Zentrale Planung, simply skip it in the list of focuses I've added here, and just do it later once you're back in a war with the Soviets. And there we go. The UK is kaput, and we have virtually all the contribution. Italy has a little, but that's all Italy's gonna get. Now, there are 2 trains of thought when we're going through the peace deal. I'll first go over what I'm going to do, mostly for flavor's sake, and then I'm gonna tell you what you could also do. So what I'm going to do is annex most things. Why? Because I can. That's why. So I'm going to start with the Netherlands and Belgium. We're going to annex their European holdings. We'll do the same with Luxembourg, and we'll also annex Alsace-Lorraine. Then we're going to annex the entirety of the Polish Republic. We're also going to annex the entirety of Norway. Next up, we're going to annex all the island holdings for the British Isles. So all of Ireland and all of England, Scotland, Wales. Don't forget about the Isle of Man. People tend to forget about it. It's annoying. Then, we are going to specifically puppet the French in Free France, at least the European side of things. We are going to personally take the state of Nord-Pas-de-Calais, because we can turn it into a puppet as well. And then we're going to puppet everything in Africa, everything in the New World, and everything in Southeast Asia. Why? You could occupy it, but don't want to. We are also going to be puppeting all the component parts of Yugoslavia, so Bosnia-Herzegovina separately, Montenegro separately, Macedonia separately, Serbia separately, because you get more out of them that way. Well, Slovenia up there. And after several rounds of Italy needlessly driving up the cost. We pretty much have what we want. Just get the Raj now and we'll be done. What we're also going to be doing now is add war reparations as well as resource rights to everything we're puppeting. And all the way at the tail end, we'll steal some Navy. I'll just take whatever I can off the US. I prefer to go for their 1936 carriers or their heavy hulls. There we go. Moscow sounds the pact. Great, that buys us a little bit of time. We have a, well, sizable faction now. We've basically taken out the Allies in their entirety and replaced them with the Axis. And looking at autarky achieved with all that territory under our boot now, we can easily get rid of our economy of conquest, move into autarky, have a functional economy, for God's sakes, finally. We're also working on the Zentrale Planung, one of those focuses you can only do at war. Now with our glorious war in Europe over, we have two more targets of real consequence. One, the big old Soviet Union, which we've just signed a non-aggression pact with. For the next year, though, we'll not be looking at them. We'll be using that year to build up our forces, training up to at least 2 full army groups and additional tanks. And then there's this blue bastard over here under FDR we can also take out. Now, this is fully optional. So what we're going to do now is ship our army over to the United States of America, well, to Canada and its border with the US, and prepare to take them out. That does involve leaving our border with the Soviet Union open, which we can do. We have about 1 year from the moment of signing the non-aggression pact where the Soviet Union nor Germany can actually break the pact. And some things we want to do in preparation of both the American and the Soviet wars is to build up the railway network. Now, for the American side of things, the network here is mostly fine. We could upgrade our things like local ports and naval bases to allow more supply to come in, as well as some local infrastructure for the areas where we'll be massing most of our troops. As for the Soviet side of things, yeah, we're going to need a lot of railways leading into what used to be Poland. Now, because we did sign the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the Soviets are going to want what we offered them. Part of Poland. It doesn't matter that these events happen out of the historical order. You're always going to get this event if you sign the pact. Yes, treaty stipulations must be obeyed, is where we sign over the eastern half of Poland. If we know all of Poland belongs to the Vaterland, we break the non-aggression pact early and immediately give the Soviets a war goal against us. If you are not intent on conquering America, do this by all means. Simply make sure your army is in position. Ideally, have these units ready to deploy as well, and then just go for the Soviets early. Having just developed the helicopter, of course we'll put it into production. There's also going to be a point where Hungary kind of wants to join the party. I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want them in. Could eat them very easily. However, I like having friends, so welcome aboard. Now, having researched some more tank technology as well as artillery tech, we are going for a slight upgrade to our medium tanks. These are the improved medium tanks. We've got this design. It's pretty much the same as before. We're just using a better howitzer, a better radio, and improved our technology in terms of engine and armor slightly. They're still 10.6 kilometers an hour. Reliability is, it's fine. Soft attack is nice. Armor is slightly higher because we might be facing somewhat more armor penetration, though not that much in single player. This is fine. It's still relatively cheap. We'll start putting these bad boys into production to replace our current stocks. We've also finished our super heavy howitzer, so we'll start making some of those. We can assign 5 factories to each of them, and with autarky achieved, our economy of conquest is gone, replaced by Wirtschaftswunder, an actual functional economy. We have managed to turn an economy in shambles in one of the world's leading industrial powers through the magic of theft. Now, as for focuses, I'm going to let you off the leash at this point. Right, having finished Cross the Atlantic, we have a war goal on the United States. We are going to declare war. 2 army groups, 1 army group for the entire western half, 1 army group for the eastern border, mostly focused around New England. That's also where the armor is, and the armor will essentially punch a hole through there. We're also going to need to call our puppets in. We are going to call Quebec and Canada into this war. So the goal for the armor here is to punch a hole towards Boston, trying to cut off like this northern section of New England, crush that pocket, and keep driving south along the coast, seizing the major victory hubs and the major, industrial centers. Over here, we'll try to make a small infantry push towards Detroit, see if we cannot get the Michigan Peninsula under our control. In the west, I should say, yeah, this is the west. I totally knew that. We're not going to do anything. We're simply going to hold position
position for the time being. So the armor is pushing towards Boston. We have encircled this portion of the US military. They will now be destroyed. There's also no need to call any of our allies or puppets in that are not Canada. The only reason we call Canada in is because we have to if we want to use their territory to move through, which we do. Now we're going to try to get the armor towards Providence and New York, and then try to cut across towards this lake in Ohio. And encircled, ready to be destroyed. Again, the infantry can mop up the pockets, destroy them. Next up, I'm going to use the armor to do a little cheesy drive towards Chicago. From Cleveland, we'll cut along the south of Michigan towards Chicago, cut off the Michigan Peninsula, get ready to encircle and destroy the units there as well. All right, we've finished Uplift the Rosenberg office. This is a whole new German mechanic that is very important if you are still stuck on the economy of conquest. As we discussed, economy of conquest and MEFO Bills get worse the more non-core territory you occupy, and we are occupying quite a bit of it. Fortunately for us, we got rid of that. We now have the magnificent Wirtschaftswunder instead of the economy of conquest. All that aside, this allows us to have access to many different puppets. We can simply spend, let's say, 30 political power and establish the general government in Poland. We can now put a whoever we want in charge, and now that place is a very integrated puppet that we can leverage for manpower, simple occupation. It is a puppet government that is doing our bidding without the need for us to occupy it, and we can do that all over the place. That is one way of dealing with the fact that you're not supposed to occupy too much core territory while you're still dealing with the economy of conquest. And with every one of these states you release, this man, Alfred Rosenberg, gets better, meaning he reduces the amount of consumer goods you need, he speeds up factory construction, factory output, and gives you a master impact, meaning your puppets get less and less autonomous as time goes on. Now back to the US. Having cut towards Chicago from Cleveland, all of Michigan is encircled. We'll simply destroy the units there with a quick tank push north. And because America is into doing unspeakable things to itself, I will do unspeakable things to them as well. We are now going to do another tank drive from Cleveland down towards Charleston and Richmond, and then the coast, with the goal of again trapping as much of the US military between our forces ready for the crushing. We've reached Richmond, and then we'll push to Norfolk, seize one of America's biggest naval bases, and trap more of their armed forces in a quite hopeless situation. Now, we've essentially achieved victory at this point. The US military is down to less than 100 divisions. We have 240, more than 240 committed to this invasion alone. Less than 100,000 losses. The Americans are almost up to 1 million. Encircle is destroy is the name of the game. Always try to trap their units so they cannot withdraw, and then simply destroy those divisions instead of having to push them back, only to fight them a second, a third, a fourth, etc. All right, it's been a few months here. So far, so good. We've seized pretty much all of the industrially relevant parts of the US except for California. I also did skip over this. So shatter the American hegemony. Pretty good focus. Gives you quite a few bonuses against the Americans if you would need them. And with that, victory in the United States has been achieved, and it's all our own doing. Simply going to puppet the Philippines. I don't want to handle them, and we will annex all of the United States for ourselves. Again, we can create puppets out of them if we use the correct focuses, so we're just gonna do this. Might as well steal some of their ships while we're at it. And with that, Germany triumphs on all fronts, and we shift the entire military now to the east. Another thing you might want to do in early 1940 is improve relations with Japan, as well as putting a spy there on diplomatic pressure, and see if you can't force them to sign a non-aggression pact. There we go, war with the USSR. You can either get a couple of extra generals and some Cossack cavalry, or more base war support and political power. Both are equally irrelevant. I'll just take the top option. And now we fight the Soviets. I'll simply declare war. I'm not going to call my allies in. Now, this does a couple of things. It also triggers the Finnish continuation war. If you care about Finland at all, consider sending them a little help. As for the Russian army itself, it is relatively simple. We do the same thing to Russia, or the Soviet Union, as we did to the Americans. We create encirclement after encirclement,
and destroy their army. I will need to call the Poles in, call them to arms, but we're not going to call any of our other puppets or allies in, not yet. We'll eventually get Hungary in, we'll eventually get Romania in. For now, I just need them to be a big distraction while we create a couple of easy squeezy puppets. First off, we're going to use an armored thrust towards Lviv or Lvov, whatever, and then we're going to spread out further south. See if we can get to Czernowice down there or Vinnytsia over there. From Vinnytsia, we can then again try to cut for the Romanian border if there is a weak spot there, or failing that, we could try to cut for this tile here, Nikolaev. That would ensure everything between where we start our encirclement and the sea is cut off from the main front, and we can then drive them back into the ports of Ackermann and Odessa, the only two places they would have supply. So let's get to it then. Air is up, Navy is in place, they're providing naval superiority in the Baltic so we don't get naval invaded, and the idea is always to make a drive through the least defensive terrains, try to push through the plains, try to push along railway hubs, leading towards supply hubs so we can actually supply the units we're trying to push in. And it does look like we'll have an opportunity to push into Czernowice. A second pincer of the armor group is still going to head for Vinnytsia to secure the supply hub there. And from there, we can then springboard down to Nikolaev to create another massive encirclement. All right, that is encirclement achieved around the first pocket in Stanislav. And now we're going to drive further south towards Odessa and Ackermann. We may run into some red air every now and then, but we're trading in such a favorable, well, exchange rate, I guess, that the Soviet Air Force will not be the Soviet Air Force for much longer. Yeah, as for that push towards Nikolaev and Odessa, tanks are unable to push due to a lack of fuel, which was to be expected, so we're gonna wait for the supply hub here in Vinnytsia to come online. It is online. We're gonna reassess, reorganize, and go in from a different angle. We're gonna drive those armor towards Kiev. These are plains we should be able to penetrate relatively easily. We'll seize the supply hub at Kiev, and then from Kiev try to go south to the supply hub in Cherkasy, and then cut to Nikolaev. All right, we've made it to Kiev. Now we push for that supply hub in Cherkasy. So my plan is almost always the same. Fight along railways, seize supply, make sure the enemy is more and more encircled so their units can be destroyed. I don't have to push them back. I've already killed more than 500,000 Soviets in a month of the war simply by focusing on creating large encirclements. But the principle is always the same: encircle and destroy. And with that, we have reached the tile actually just above Nikolaev, and we have created a massive encirclement around Odessa, which we will now use the armor to collapse. To keep the units pinned in place, we can also call the Romanians in now. Call them to arms. We can call the Hungarians in, but we've actually bypassed them already. Now we launch a full-scale assault on the position, put the units under as much pressure as we can to prevent them from, well, escaping. And once the ports have fallen, all these men are trapped. And there goes Odessa, and now into Ackermann. All of these men are now trapped. And the pocket's gone. 1.1 million casualties for the Soviets. Get everyone to their respective front lines. We're going to split the front again. One army group for the north. We'll make sure the border is separated somewhere over there. One for the south. Next step, we are going to bring the armor back up north, and I'm going to punch through here. Next step, we are going to take the armor and we're going to drive to Dnipropetrovsk in Zaporizhia to seize the local supply there, take Crimea. After that, we can reposition. Next up, I'm going to make a tank push north from Kiev or Kyiv towards Bobruisk. Speaking of, I'll take 5 tanks away from the main thrust, put them around Suwalki, and from Suwalki, we will make a big thrust again towards Minsk and Bobruisk as well. The armor moves forward through Kiev towards Bobruisk. There we go. Massive encirclement created. We can now exploit that by pushing the armor even further in towards Bryansk and Smolensk. While I freely admit that pockets like these are a bit of showboating on my part, also trying to show you that they're not as hard as you might think. These are what devastate the AI armies. The AI is very good at replenishing losses by simply putting fresh equipment and manpower into divisions, but the AI is very bad at replacing divisions. So having destroyed those pockets, they are down 2 million men December 1941. See if we can take Leningrad. Then we're going to shift around and do a push push through this railway towards Moscow, see if we can seize that, and then a drive on Stalingrad. Stalingrad is lower on the priority because there are more Soviet troops here. Time to launch a bit of a multi-pronged assault on Leningrad. We also have 2 collaboration governments in on the Soviet Union. Could get a third, but it's a bit late now. Leningrad has been taken. Next up, we're going to pivot our forces and we're going to see if we can get a drive on Moscow going. And we have seized Moscow, which means the axis of advance for the armor is going to shift once again. We're going to push through Rostov, Stalino towards Stalingrad. And so falls Stalingrad now for a push towards the Caucasus region. And there we go, an end to the Soviet Union. The quickest and cleanest way to get this all done is simply puppeting the Soviet Union in its entirety, along with Mongolia and whoever else. So for the to have nice borders, I've simply given all the territory that had claims on them to the various Reichskommissariats. I've given Finland its pound of flesh because they deserve it. They had claims there, handed those out as well. And now we have a massive Reichskommissariat Muscovian that we can still shrink by clicking some buttons here to create more Reichskommissariats. Another fun thing is the Volga Germany colony. You can turn that into core German territory or integrate it into whatever puppet you'd like to integrate it in. And with that peace deal, we have achieved pretty much global dominance. If you want to fight China or Japan, be my guest. You should have all the tools you need for it now. It's April 1942. Germany is at the peak of its power. 451 military factories, 457 civilian factories. We have magnificent national spears for the army and the air force. The navy's lagging behind a bit, but so be it. We have an industry that's not only functional, but booming. We are at the top of our game, and the world is our oyster. And it's not hard. I've shown you how to do it. Follow along using the focuses and the research down in the description below, and enjoy. This has been me, Bittersteel, and I hope you learned something, and I hope you watch the next video as well. Goodbye.